In this video, I'm going to show you what it looks like to evaluate overwintered hives. So these are hives that have survived 1 or more years and should be your more productive hives in the apiary. So the management's going to be a little bit different this time of the season. Usually there's not as much to do. Mainly it's checking that you're queen right, everything's good in that situation, and that the resources are just in the right place. Most of the time that's not an issue. These should be bigger colonies and should be well filled out. So a lot of the times it's just checking that you're queen right and then moving on. Nice place to be this time of the season. As you'll see in another video, with smaller colonies that's a little bit different. And the way that we have our apiary set up is that the first 3 rows of this apiary are colonies that have been with us for many years. And so the management's going to be pretty quick on those. But for the last 4 days, I have been working on the back 4 rows, which are our newer colonies in those back 4 rows. Those are colonies that we have from this season, from splits from the overwintered colonies. And those colonies I've spent days going through, and the reason is because we're in a lot of different situations with those types of colonies, in those back rows. And I'll show you what we do with those smaller colonies. In those situations, a lot of the times what we're dealing with is we're dealing with colonies that maybe struggled through the season and never really built up big enough to get to where they could survive the winter. In that situation, we'd combine those with other colonies. We may run across colonies that are not queen right, that have lost a queen for one reason or another here in the latter part of the season. And in those situations, what we're going to look at is breaking down the resources available in that colony and giving them to colonies that are in good shape, but just are a little bit light on resources, meaning nectar, that's honey that's going to get them through the winter. So let's take a look at what we're doing in here today and evaluate these colonies. So this is an overwintered colony. We've had this colony, according to our records, for 5 years. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to get this colony ready now for winter. This colony has been one that we've harvested honey from. So we harvested about 100 pounds of honey off of this hive this year. It's been a good hive for us. And so I just kind of want to show you what we go through as far as consolidation of resources to make sure that this hive is ready to go into winter. So first thing I'm going to do is it is robbing season. And we've seen a lot of robbing happening recently. And so we're going to be installing a reducer on the bottom of this particular hive. So we just go pop that in just like so. So let's dive into the hive now and see what's going on as far as resources and where they are positioned. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I like to do this with most of my hives, I'm going to come to the back and I'm just going to lift it up. I can tell that this hive has quite a bit of honey on it. This is probably somewhere around 150 pounds on here total, maybe a little bit more. So it's not completely ready for winter in that it's not completely backfilled with honey, but I'm sure they're doing that process right now. So let's pop in here and see what's going on. Immediately open it up and there's a face full of bees right there. So this hive does have a formic treatment on there that we're going to be taking off right now. This top box in here is completely empty. I added that for extra space during the formic treatment. And you've heard me talk about that before, about adding more space on there so you can let those bees spread out more in the colony when that treatment's on. So as you can see behind me, there's a whole bunch of hardware just hanging around. Same thing with this. This is what I'm doing is I'll just be putting this behind me and I'll come back and pick that up once I'm done going through this round of the apiary. All right, so now I'm looking down inside of here, and I'm going to bring you a little bit closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing in here. Okay, so this is our 4th box right here, and I like to have my 8-frame equipment at least in 4 boxes, 4 to 5, but 4 will get you through the winter just fine. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through this colony and just I want to see what's up here as far as how many of these frames are actually filled with honey. Ideally, what I want is everything up here and in the bottom boxes to be filled with honey. Now, right now, we're in our last probably cycle of brood or near the last cycle of brood. And what's happening in the brood chamber is they're backfilling that brood chamber as that brood is hatching out. So I'm going to also kind of believe, I'm going to understand that, you know, there also are going to be some more resources coming in the rest of this season. Now, there's not a lot in the way of floral resources, but I am feeding these colonies, and if I determine that I need a little bit more weight on this, I may throw a feeder on this colony just to make sure it's got a little extra weight on there. So let's see what's going on. So normally you don't really have to pull the honey frames in order to be able to determine how much of this is filled with honey. You've heard me talk about this before, about this opportunity to look down between the frames. What I can see is this frame right here is capped honey. This frame right here, I can see that there are uncapped cells at the top of that. So I'm going to want to go ahead and take a little bit of a further look. Now, if I were able to look down in all of these and could see they were all capped, that'd be no problem. You can see the outside frame isn't even drawn yet, so that's not really going to amount to anything by the end of the season. This frame right here is drawn, and you can see they are storing honey in there. So they're still storing in here. So this box is getting filled out pretty readily. Let's see what else is going on in here a little bit closer. I can already tell just by the weight of the frame that this is a honey frame again, and by the position. Lots of honey in there, uncapped so far. Looks like they're starting to cap just the outside. Back is the same situation. Okay, and as we go in a little bit further, what I see is that we've got a frame here that they are starting to cap in the center and are working their way out. This is almost full, and the next frame inside of there is that capped honey frame I saw. So essentially, when I look at from this side of the colony, this is pretty much filled out. There's going to be a little bit more honey going into this thing right here, this frame at the end here, and this last frame is completely undrawn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to poke over here, and I can see that last frame over there is completely drawn. So what I'm going to ideally do is if I have another colony that may have an empty drawn frame, I'll probably put that right in there. But we'll move on ahead to see what else we've got going on in here, and if we need to shift anything around. I'm going to move my top cover so it's out of the way. And let's go down into the next one. I'll pop this frame back in there, but noting in my head that there's an empty frame up there that I want to take care of. Now when I lift this up, I can tell this probably has about 30 pounds of honey in it, maybe a little bit less, maybe 25. All right, so the next box here, and let me make sure that the camera is following along with me. All right. Okay, so here's our next box. Again, same thing. I'm going to look down to see what's going on. And what I can see is this frame is capped honey, that frame is capped honey, this frame is capped, 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 capped honey. Now, in the middle here, I can see that this is the color of the wax is the darker color, which you would expect from brood. So I may have a little bit of brood in here in the middle as well. What I'm going to do is go ahead and pop past this, and based on the weight, I should be able to determine how much honey's in here. And that's a heavy one. That's pretty much full. You can see, potentially, on the video, here's my formic treatments. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. And now because I had a formic treatment on there, I'm also going to make sure I'm queen right. This is my regular inspection, so we're going to go through this process and make sure we're queen right. I'm going to look at the bottom of this right here, and I can see that these two middle frames here actually may have a little bit of brood in there. We're going to go ahead and move past that and see if we can identify if we're queen right down in here. Okay, so just evaluating frames again from the top. Capped brood, or capped honey, capped honey, capped honey, capped honey, and then brood in the middle. So let's go ahead and pull some of these frames here and see what's going on in the middle. We want to make sure we're queen right. You know, we just had a formic treatment on. I know a lot of you that have used formic acid this year have contacted me about losing queens during formic treatments, and I have noticed it myself too, more so than I would say in other years. I have noticed that there has been quite a lot of supersedure happening. Now, in my situation, some of that supersedure would have been expected. These were older queens that were in these colonies. So, you know, it's generally colonies that are kind of on the edge as far as with vulnerable queens that are generally subjected to that treatment. But I've noticed it myself too. So that's why you always want to make sure after you pull off these treatments that you ensure that you are queen right. Okay. This frame here is pollen frame. Lots of honey on both front and back, but primarily a pollen frame. You can see, and let's hope the camera adjusts, but you can see this center area where there was brood. These bees right now are backfilling that area. So this area of the brood chamber is currently being backfilled, and that's what you want to see right now. All right. see what we else got going on in here. Beautiful day up here in the UP. It's in the mid-70s today. We've been kind of all over the place with weather, freezing temperatures, nice weather. Bees don't know what the heck's going on, right? All right, so another frame here. This is also a frame that's being backfilled. It has quite a bit of pollen in it as well, but primarily being backfilled. The back of this is being backfilled. Okay, next frame. Trying to ensure that we're queen right here. Now, if we weren't queen right in this situation because of a formic treatment, what would I do? It's too late in the season to rear a queen. It's way too late. If you can find a mated queen, go for it. But it's too late to rear a queen. In this situation, if I lost a queen, what am I going to do? We say it all the time. You're going to do the newspaper combined with a colony that is queen right. Because it's better to take those losses now, have a big robust colony that goes through the winter, than to lose both colonies because they're not robust or one's, not queen right. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm trying to determine if I'm queen right. Ask them nicely to move out of the way with a little blow of air on their backs. No eggs on there. You can see that this is a brood frame. No eggs on there either, and there's an 8-day-old, well, let's say like a 6-day-old larva in there. So, no eggs in there. Let's keep moving forward. These ladies are Michigan mutts. So this is a colony, like I said, that have had many years. Has basically we've been using our genetic stock in the apiary, which kind of gets mixed up over the course of time because of supersedures, mating, all of that good stuff. And this has been a really productive colony for us. There's our queen right there. She's a green queen. Last year, still kicking strong, that's for sure. This colony, like I said, we produced 100 pounds of honey off of this year. So we're queen right. She's good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and push these frames together. And what I'll likely do here, because we really only have one frame on that outside that's not gonna amount to much as far as honey is concerned. But overall, this colony has enough to get through the winter. At this point, we've got at least 100 pounds of honey on here. So I'm feeling very confident that this thing will be good to go. We just took a formic treatment off of here. We won't be doing any more treatments this year. We may do a cleanup treatment of oxalic in the late fall, but right now this is where we're going to stand with this particular colony. And one thing I am going to do today is I'm also going to be looking at other colonies as well. So some of our smaller colonies to determine if they need some support. But this is one of our overwintered colonies. And by smaller colonies, I mean one of our first year colonies. But this is a good overwintered colony. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. We're not going to have to adjust anything. And with these larger colonies, that is typically the case. They usually fill out completely just like they're supposed to, especially when they're managed correctly. And so this particular colony is totally filled out from top to bottom. Now I haven't gone down into that bottom box yet, but what I can do is I can grab it back here and pull it up and just be able to tell what the weight feels like down there. And I can tell that there's some good honey weight down there. So I'll go ahead and let this go for another couple weeks and then come back and check on it just to make sure it's on track for winter. But we should be only about 2 more inspections away from the end of the season and this thing being closed up. This is a good looking hive. This is what you want to see in 8-frame equipment. 4 frames deep, or 4 boxes deep. This has about, what do we see here? 16. It's got about 24 frames of bees and in excess of 100 pounds of honey on there. And so this is a colony in pretty good shape for winter. So this is what you're kind of shooting for when you're trying to get those colonies set up to go. All right, so this is another overwintered colony that I've popped open here. This colony we also harvested about 100 pounds of honey off of. And the reason that I turned on the camera again is because this is a little bit of a better situation to show you what I mean by consolidating resources. So I can see on this outside, this is the 4th box up. I took a 5th box off that was just there for the formic treatment that's on it currently. But what I can see just by looking down here is that these 2 outside frames here and this one on the end here are primarily undrawn. And so what I'd like to do is if this box above, which has bee activity in it, has frames that are drawn or have honey stored in them, I would want to move them down into this box at this point, because that other box is just kind of going to be a waste of time. They're never going to fill that completely out. It's better to just consolidate everything down into these boxes at this time of the year so that they're only utilizing the space that you're going to be having them use during the winter. So let's take a look and see what's going on here. You can see this outside frame is completely undrawn. The next frame is the same. When we go in here, next frame is the same. So we have 3 undrawn frames there. You can see this one, they're storing honey in and drawing wax, and the same with the next one, the following one, that one, and that last frame is totally undrawn as well. So right now we have 4 frames in here that are drawn and have honey being stored in them. Ideally what I want to do is get rid of those 4 undrawn frames and put in 4 frames that are at least drawn in there so that they can use that time that we've got in the rest of the season to fill those last little bits of those frames. What also I'll likely do, because this top box is it's not very full. These frames are being stored, but they are not anywhere near completely full. What I'll also probably do on this is add a feeder at this point. And not because I don't think that we're going to be able to get through. Let's see. Oh my gosh, no, that's very heavy. And actually I may not put a feeder on just based on that weight. What I'll probably end up doing is just adding more drawn frames up here, because it does feel like this already has enough weight to get through the winter. Likelihood is that those bottom 3 boxes are almost near completely backfilled. When you think about that in terms of weight, we've got 3 boxes here. This is an 8 frame box. Each one of those boxes, when they're backfilled, is going to be about 45 pounds. So potentially we've already got somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 pounds of honey in those bottom 3 boxes, which is good. That's what we want. We want somewhere between 100 and 150 pounds of honey on these colonies as they go through winter. I'll pull this box here. It's got some weight to it, maybe about 10 pounds of honey in there. All right, so the next box that we've got here, move these frames out of the way. Next box we've got here. This one here looks like from the top of it that this is primarily all capped honey in here, all the way to the outside. 1 frame on this side is still being filled out. So it looks like they've just started working on this. They've got honey going in, but wax is being drawn on both sides. The next frame in from there is drawn. Okay, so I'm not going to dive into this because I'm in here to, 1, check and make sure I'm clean right, 2, get rid of my formic treatments, and then reconsolidate these resources based on what I see as I go through the colony. So let's get a little deeper into it. And let me adjust the camera so you can follow me along. All right. I keep telling you guys all season this whole videography thing has been a whole new learning experience for me. This is not something I have any training in, so it's hard to sometimes keep attention to what you're doing and what you're filming. All right, so let's get these treatments off. All right. And we're going to move this box of honey. Oh, yeah. That is a full box of honey. I could tell you that. My back feels that. That's when you need the hive lifter. All right, so let's get in here. So I can see this outside frame is just full of honey. Completely. There you can see that as well. Next frame, whoo, that's a heavy one right there. Full of honey as well. And now when I'm doing this, I also, and I've told you this in other videos, I like to kind of cheat and look down in here. And a lot of times, like I say, you can see from the top what's going on in the frame. And I can tell you that just from looking down in here, these next 2 frames on the bottom box are completely drawn out and capped. So I don't really need to get down in there because I know that just from looking at that, that's completely capped just from the top. And you can see that they're well-drawn frames. All right, next frame. We've got a pollen frame here on one side and honey on the other. All capped. Next frame, now we're getting in the brood chamber. We've got some older brood on here, and I am looking to see that I'm queen right. Again, because we just took off a formic treatment. No signs of a queen on that side. But on this side, this frame is entirely eggs on this side. So this may be actually the last generation that comes on. 21 days from now would put us in, about the second week of October. So now we're getting into the latter part of the season. So we may be starting to see those last generations come on. But just from that, I know we're queen right. Let's put her back together. Now at this point, I could also kind of evaluate the weight of just these two bottom boxes to determine how much of this has actually been backfilled. But like I said, from the visual side, all of this is full as far as the outside frames are concerned. But the backfilling is taking place. So let's just lift this up from the back. Okay, so I can tell you that based off of that, that's probably about 75 pounds, maybe 60 pounds, somewhere around there. So they are backfilling these chambers, but we saw that there's eggs in there, so there's still brood being put on. In all likelihood, just like the last colony that we went through, this one looks like it's in pretty darn good shape, on track for the winter. Ideally, 4 boxes deep is what I want. I'll take 5 if I can get it, but a lot of times that doesn't happen because of honey harvest. But four mediums completely backfilled and filled with honey is going to be plenty to get you through the winter here in the UP. Especially when you do those mid-season checks to ensure your bees don't starve out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stack this back together just like we had it. I'm going to leave that last one out. Let me pop you up here. All right, so we're back in our top box. We've gone through the entire colony and we could see that everything was filled down below. So really what we're left with is this top box. And this top box, like we said earlier, this outside frames were totally empty, so I'm going to get rid of those. We had 4 frames in the middle that had drawn comb on them and that they were storing honey in, or storing nectar in. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to the box I took off that was above this, that had a little bit of drawn comb in it, and I'm going to go ahead and pull those frames that were drawn, that are in the center of that box, and put them in here. So that what we're dealing with at this point is that this colony has enough room up top to store more resources. It does not have to draw wax to do that. So it can maximize what's out in the apiary, or out in the fields right now. Still available for them. We've actually, I just passed a field yesterday that still has a ton of sweet clover in it. That's just about a mile away from our place. So they still do have some forage left, even though our buckwheat unfortunately got taken out by frost. All right, so what I'm going to do, come back to this other box, and I'm going to pull the frames, like I said, that are drawn. All right, so I know these frames are in the center, because that's where the bees are clustering. Oh, goodness. It's a tight box there. All right. So I've got one frame that's just got a little bit of wax on it. We'll go ahead and put that in here. And then I've got 2 more frames. I've got this frame that's just getting drawn, so that's really not going to amount to much by the end of the season. But I got to work with what I got. And then I've got 2 more frames that are drawn. So we got a drawn frame and a drawn frame. We'll go ahead and pop those in there. Now what I'll likely do with this colony is just let it keep going. Again, based off of the overall hive weight, this has got enough weight in there. But this top box I would like to see get filled out. I'm going to come back to these colonies. This time of the year, I like to come back to the colonies maybe every couple weeks just to check their progress. But right now, because I've got some colonies that I am going to be feeding, I'm going to probably come back in a week or so. And so I'll check on this again next week. And if they're not progressing at all, what I'll likely do is to throw on a feeder here to fill out this top box. Right now, we're just going to let it go. And the reason I'm letting that go is because I feel like I've already got enough weight. If I had to go 3 boxes, I could probably do it. All right, and there we go.